And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. In what appears to be a first for U.S. foreign policy, new revelations have emerged that the Bush administration secretly trained an Iranian opposition group despite its inclusion on the State Department's list of foreign terrorists. Writing for the New Yorker magazine, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Seymour Hersh reports U.S. Joint Special Operations Command trained operatives from Mujahideen-e-Khalq, or MEK, at a secret site in Nevada beginning in 2005. According to Hersh, MEK members were trained in intercepting communications, cryptography, weaponry, and small unit tactics at the Nevada site up until President Obama took office. The MEK has been included on the State Department's list of foreign terrorist groups since 1997. It's been linked to a number of attacks spanning from the murders of 6 U.S. citizens in the 70s to the recent wave of assassinations targeting Iranian nuclear scientists. Although the revelation that the U.S. government directly trained the MEK comes as a surprise, it's no secret the group has prominent backers across the political spectrum. Despite its designation as a terrorist organization by the State Department for 15 years, a number of prominent former U.S. officials have been paid to speak in support of the MEK. The bipartisan list includes 2 former CIA directors, James Woolsey and Porter Goss, former Homeland Security Secretary Tom Ridge, New York City Mayor Rudolph Giuliani, former Vermont Governor Howard Dean, former Attorney General Michael Mukasey, former FBI Director Louis Freeh, former UN Ambassador John Bolton, and former Pennsylvania Governor Ed Rendell. Last month, Rendell and other unnamed officials were subpoenaed by the Treasury Department over their ties to MEK. Mukasey and Freeh have retained former Clinton administration Solicitor General Seth Waxman in response to the Treasury Department probe. Rendell, meanwhile, has shrugged off the scrutiny, speaking at a public event in support of the MEK Friday in Washington. He told the crowd, quote, "I never knew obtaining a subpoena from your own government would be so much fun." Well, for more on the U.S. and its ties to the MEK, we're joined by Seymour Hersh in Washington, D.C. His new piece for The New Yorker is called Armen in Iran. Welcome to Democracy Now!, Cy Hersh, and happy birthday.
Oh, yes, that's right. It's great to be older.
Well, we'll focus on the wiser part. Tell us what you have learned. Who are, as you call it, Armen in Iran?
They are, as you said, they're the MEK. And by the way, once again, Amy, the piece was on the New Yorker blog, not in the magazine. It's a shorter piece. And but anyway, the point is, it went through the same sort of intense checking as anything in the New Yorker, of course. Simply, they're just the Khalq, the MEK. We began to. I learned about this many years ago. It's just one of those things that it never quite occurred to me how important it was. And what is important about also they did stop, there's no question, this sort of training that was going on. It was going on at a place called the Nevada Nuclear Security or National Security Test Site. It's a former site for post-World War II nuclear testing of weapons, testing of nuclear weapons. And it's off limits to people. And there's an air base there. God knows what went on there. My own guess is rendition flights also flew into that air base in 02, 03. There's some evidence for it. But certainly the groups of MEK were flown in secretly by, I presume, the Joint Special Operations Command. This is this new high-powered group that's been doing all the night raids in Afghanistan. That also came up in your news broadcast. What's important to me about it is not only that it did end this kind of direct training of this group that is, as you said, a terrorist group. It's also very clear that the United States is still involved, as is Israel, and as was for many years England, in using the MEK and other dissident groups inside Iran as surrogates for the continued pressure we're putting covertly on inside of Iran. And that is, as you said, there are assassinations done by the MEK. And let me make it clear, the MEK has been in a virtual war with the mullahs in Iran since the fall of the Shah. And you don't have to urge them to kill anybody. They're very eager to do it themselves inside that country. But still, nonetheless, we provide intelligence. We, the Americans, have continued to provide intelligence and other kinds of material support for the MEK. Don't forget, they speak Farsi, which is a great asset to us. These are people who are able to translate intercepted communications inside Iran for us very quickly and with great skill. And so we have a lot of reason to rely on them, as we rely on other dissident groups inside Iran, the Kurds, the Azeris, and others, to cause basically to try and keep some sort of internal chaos and mayhem going inside the country.
Is it believed the MEK were involved in the assassinations of the Iranian nuclear scientists?
Well, nobody has a video of it, but that seems clear that one of their goals, obviously, is to prevent the Iranians from developing nuclear weapons. And it's not clear who they're really assassinating, whether they're... I know that at one time, my government, I wrote about this in the New Yorker many years ago, in 05 or 06, that we've been actively involved, beginning in the Cheney-Bush days, of encouraging insurrection inside Iran. Whether it's aimed at regime change or not isn't clear. I doubt that. But basically, blowing up things, etc. We did have a list at one time we created here in Washington of people we'd like to see gone, captured perhaps, turned over, or turned into our agents, double agents inside Iran. We tried to do that too. But certainly the Israelis are pawing the ground as if they're directly responsible or deeply involved with the MEK and the recent assassination of a 32-year-old scientist whose role in terms of there's not much evidence he was involved in making weapons, because there's no evidence that Iranians are making weapons.
Can you talk about the bombs that were used in the assassinations?
Well, they're most interesting bombs. They're limpet bombs, marine limpet bombs. They're designed, they have a special charge, and they're designed to go inside. They blow inside. And they're, of course, of great use by the Navy SEALs. And the Navy SEALs, if you're going to do an underwater demolition, if you're going to blow up a ship from underwater, which is the SEALs traditionally were trained to do, most of them are involved in day-to-day combat in Afghanistan, etc., and much different from their initial role of underwater stuff. But if you want to blow up something underwater, you have to have a charge that explodes inward to cause water to rush in, etc. And these kind of very sophisticated charges have been used by the MEK in the assassinations. And the reason we know it is that the car that was hit, for example, in January in Tehran, that killed a young scientist, or the nuclear physicist, or whatever he was, exploded inward. You can argue this is also good because it avoids non-combatant deaths. You don't want to kill a lot of people other than the one you're trying to kill. And it's also useful because you make sure anybody in that car gets it, because it does blow inside. It's a very sophisticated shaped charge, and there's no question that some of the best minds in the Navy mine-making business, where some of that information was obviously passed on, whether directly to the MEK or through Israeli assets, or explicitly how. But it's not an accident that these kinds of sophisticated weapons can be traced to the Navy SEALs, who are a major element of the Joint Special Operations Command.
Interestingly, you end your piece by quoting Defense Secretary Leon Panetta at Fort Bliss in Texas, acknowledging the U.S. has some ideas as to who might have been involved, but we don't know exactly who was involved, being questioned about. This was the day after, a few days after the assassination of the Iranian nuclear scientist. He said, "I can tell you one thing, the U.S. was not involved in that kind of effort. That's not what the United States does."
Well, I think that's technically correct. I don't think there's any other way to read that comment as the use of that last graph as an ironic statement, perhaps. I think it's correct that also, it's to my knowledge, this isn't in the piece because only one particular source about it, but I do understand that we really don't know what's going to happen until after it happens, and then we are put on notice. We do get notice that something's happened before it's released to the public. We have that kind of communication, essentially through Israel. Israel's obviously a little closer to everything that's going on than we are, but we're certainly we're not picking targets. I doubt that now. At least I don't have any evidence we are, but we're providing general intelligence, and it's not an accident that the first units of the MEK to show up in Nevada, late 04, early 05, and it was months and months of training. It's not, the first word used by two different people about it was communications and crypto. The point is that there was a story in the Washington Post just the other day here describing how America has been using drones to overfly Iran for at least 3 years. I would argue that long before that, we've been using American satellites flying high that can't be detected. And obviously, you can uplink and downlink communications to satellites. You can, if you're on the ground and you find out something very useful technically, by training the MEK in communications and how to use encrypt communications, you're also enabling them to become an asset on the ground for us. There was a period, I would say, in the Bush administration, I also think it stopped under Obama, when our boys, our Joint Special Operations Command guys, were directly inside Iran. We came in through Herat in Afghanistan. We also, that was one of what we call a rat line. There are other rat lines through Baluchistan in Pakistan and et cetera. There were ways to get inside Iran clandestinely that we've been using for at least since, I'd say, late '04. Until probably right before Obama got in. So we were there. Look, it's been a huge, big internal game designed to destabilize. And as somebody said to me, and one of the pieces, one of the quotes in the pieces, we're not necessarily looking for Einsteins. That suggests to me that the scientists who are really the most deeply involved in the enrichment. And by the way, let me say again, there is no evidence that our intelligence community or even the Israeli intelligence community has, and I know that firsthand, suggesting that there's an ongoing bomb program. So we are now, the United States is now in the position of increasing sanctions and pressuring all sorts of economic pressure on the Iranians to stop. The whole purpose of the economic sanctions is to stop the Iranians from making a bomb that we know they're not making. Once again, I don't know how we get into this convoluted position, and then as readers of the major newspapers know, we are now also entering new talks with Iran with new preconditions, and basically telling them that they must stop doing, enriching, what they are legally entitled to do as members of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Iran may be secretly wanting a bomb, and they may have that passion, and they may be, dream about it at night. But we haven't a shred of evidence that they've done anything concretely, physically, to create a facility for making a weapon.
We're talking to Seymour Hersh. We're going to come back to him in 30 seconds, the Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist who's written a piece for The New Yorker online called "Are Men in Iran?" Stay with us.